Well, howdy ho there, folks. How are we doing today? Hopefully, you're all doing absolutely peachy keen fantastic, full of the love of the Lord, and all that great stuff. Today, I want to talk a little bit about canon and silliness and wackiness, and how you can bring your own stuff into 40k. Now, you see, one of my favorite parts of 40k is not just following the lore, but it's taking the lore and making something new within it. You know, I really like to make my own war bands, my own WAs, my own Space Marine chapter, my own Ashton Tarm, whatever you want to do. And I really like exploring the different avenues that you can do for those armies so that they're not all just like the same. Because, for instance, Space Marines have this tendency to be like a lot of very stoic guys going, oh, I don't have time for emotions, or oh, I know no fear, I'm just cool, and I love the Emperor, and I love serving, and things like that. And it's like, yeah, that's fine on one level. Or, you know, they get kind of Marvel-ish superhero type lines where they're kind of quipping back and forth. There's certain novels where you see lots of quips and stuff like that, or you see them going like, oh brother, I was keeping score, were you keeping scores? Like, yes brother, but I was ahead of you in the score. Warrior banter, you know, stuff like that. You get some of that, but I don't think that's as interesting as when you take characters and, you know, really kind of stretch them and make them into something that's a little bit more unique, as opposed to just generic Imperial Fist, very stubborn, or, you know, generic Ultramarine, I'm slightly more human and tactical, or, you know, whatever. I like having them have different personality traits, and I like having them, you know, be parts of a larger culture, but, you know, still be individuals within that culture, and not necessarily, you know, just like a carbon copy of one another, and moving around and doing their own individual things. I think that's much more interesting. That's why I like to take war bands and turn them into something that's a little bit more flexible, or a little bit different. You know, like for your Space Marines, you can take them and make them all kinds of different things. Maybe they're completely loyal to the Emperor, and they've always been loyal to the Emperor, and like maybe they're crazy zealous fanatics. Or maybe they're technically loyal to the Imperium, but they're more willing to embrace, like, you know, Xenos tech. Or they have Xenos tech that like helps them in the background, and they want to like use that tech, but they know that if the Imperium finds out, they'll consider them heretics and try to break them up, or, you know. Or maybe they're like actually basically just straight up renegades, and they're just running around, but they haven't given themselves the ruinous powers. So they have like the Space Marine technology, but they're not, you know, giving themselves over to the dark powers and things like that. You know, you can kind of do the same thing with Chaos Space Marines, or, you know, they can be like full-fledged worshippers of chaos. They can be like the word bearers and things like that, or they can be more like the Alpha Legion. They're kind of all over the place. Maybe they're not even really Chaos Marines. Maybe they're more just like straight up renegades, and they just want to, you know, raid and have like their own little pirate society and be left alone by the Imperium. And they don't really care about the Imperium. They're just trying to do their own thing and survive, but like, you know, the Imperium won't stop messing with them. Maybe they kind of got tricked into worshiping the dark powers. Maybe they're like, I can't remember what they were called. The Scourged? It might be the Scourged. But there was this one legion, or this one chapter of Space Marines who found that everybody was lying to them, so they prayed to the Emperor to get to hear only the truth. And then Tzeentch gave them the ability to hear all of the lies that people were saying, but they were hearing all the lies in the Imperium at the same time, so they were kind of like going insane from that. You can do these fun experimental things and do like kind of out there stuff. That's what I like to do. And a lot of this conversation kind of came about because I was looking, what do orcs do with their prisoners in lore, with their like human prisoners in lore? And they were like, oh, they torture them, they treat them poorly, they do blah, 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 blah. They do all the bad stuff. And, you know, for me personally, I'm not a huge fan of making every single thing in Warhammer just bad and like full of bad stuff. So I decided it would be more interesting if instead these guys were treating them differently. Like, I had this whole idea where, one second. I had this whole line, oops, press the wrong button. I had this whole line where the orcs basically captured this one Mechanicus lady who was being branded a heretic because she was super interested in Xenos technology, and she decided that she was going to work with the orcs and help them make crazy inventions and things like that. And she managed to talk her way into the Maha Mech, because I decided to call him the Maha Mech because that was a fun thing, because the Mech Lord already exists. but the Mahamech decided to use her, and now she creates these kind of weird half orky, half Imperium type bots for the orcs, and they use these bots, and they have like robots and mechs and all kinds of other crazy stuff, and she's like helped them incorporate Imperial technology they've captured into their arsenal, and the mechs like modify it and stuff like that. Yeah, you know, I thought that was a lot of fun. And I also did this thing where this is just for me and just for fun, but I decided it would be funny if the mech the Mahamech had heard that, like, or had discovered that if you give people breaks and you let them be more let them have free time, they're actually more efficient and productive, and you don't just work them to death, so you don't have to just keep getting more. So what he does is, now the humans that he's captured along with the grots take shifts in the factories alongside the robots, and now they live in a little society run by the orcs, and they're confused by it. And then I also thought that it would be fun to have them build a Doom Mall. A Doom Mall where, like, it's like a mall where they have, like, all kinds of orky shops, but then there's also, like, a racetrack in there. I thought that would be fun. And also a giant, squig shark in the middle. Because I love that. Anyway, I love doing wacky. I love doing things that are unexpected. We don't all have to just, like, embrace the idea of just getting more and more destructive stuff all the time. You see, part of the big fun of Warhammer 40k is you put your own stuff into it, and you can put wacky stuff into it. You can make your army as crazy as you want to. You can make them so that they're, like, you know, Alpha Legion guys who are technically using chaos, but are, like, kind of crazy enough that they still think they're loyalists. You can make it so that they're, so that it's an Eldar warband who has discovered that you can actually placate Slaanesh by doing, like, cheerful things and, like, being overly friendly and overindulgent in friendship and things like that. Or you can do all kinds of crazy stuff. You don't have to only stick with the most serious and the darkest stuff. You can go and have fun with it, and you can make them weird and wacky. That's what I love to do with my orcs. My orcs are weirdos who like to ride squig sharks and things like that. Know what I mean? That's fun. And that's one of the things that I really like about 40k, is that it doesn't have to be only the serious stuff, and it doesn't have to be only the stuff where people are, you know, always doing the worst things to one another. Because if you just look at the lore, the Imperium is evil, Chaos is evil, everything's kind of evil. Tower kind of like one of the only guys that are actually kind of good, and then people will be like, oh, well, they also do bad stuff. It's like, yeah, but nowhere near on the scale of anybody else. The Craft World Eldar live in a society where they have to be so restrictive of their emotions because they're afraid that even a little bit of emotion will, like, lead them to go basically become insane. And it's like, I would actually argue that that restrictive policy probably actually makes them more prone to go crazy, because I mean, you see, like, Exodites and Corsairs don't have that problem. It's mostly just the Craft World Eldar that have that problem. And then the Dark Eldar are in a society that constantly encourages them to indulge in their deepest, darkest delights. And in fact, even if it wasn't their delight, they would still be told to indulge in it and force it on themselves. So, you know, it's not really the same thing. But in 40k, I really love exploring the silly factor. I really love doing that sort of thing. If you love exploring the grimdark factor, you can do that too. You can make your army as grimdark as you want, or as silly as you want. You can make the reasonable Marines if you want. You can make the angry Marines too. You can make orcs that wear nothing but purple because they think it makes them invisible, but it doesn't actually, so they just get shot. Or you can say that they're so stealthy because they wear only purple that they actually get right up on the enemy before they get shot, so they're like, they have way fewer losses. You can do all kinds of fun, crazy stuff like that. And that's part of what makes 40k so good. It's part of what makes it so that we get to have these really fun, weird armies. And we should be able to explore these fun armies, and I invite you all to write your own lore and to do your own army as silly or as scary as you want. Know what I mean, Jimmy Dean? I just wanted to talk about that a little bit. I'm going to continue to make my orc army very silly and, you know, also based them partially off of Dead Kennedy songs because that's the kind of music I like to listen to while I name orc war bands. That and Death Grips. That's why I have a war band or a army list named Hustle Orcs, because I was listening to Hustle Bones by Death Grips while I was making the army list, and it came out pretty cool. Anyway, I just wanted to share all that. Oh, also, don't forget to bring lots of stick grenades so that you can throw them into lots of Imperial hatches, because Imperial peoples by the by are mostly bad and evil, and by using the stick grenades, we will defeat the fascist by throwing the stick grenade into the tank. And then once the tank is inside with a stick grenade, it'll be like, wow, there's a stick grenade inside of me. Maybe I can change my ways, and then it'll go... Know what I mean, Jimmy Dean? Okay. I hope that you all have an absolutely wonderful one. I hope you know that I love you and God loves you, and bye-bye, love you, bye. Have a great one, bye. Bye-bye.